let me bring up another issue. When I was presenting, I talked about a sense of belonging, but one other aspect that we're talking about a lot, and has got very strong correlations to participation and democracy policy, is the issue of trust.
Yes.
And building trust is a very difficult process. Because what we have seen is that we have certain communities and population groups that have been in Finland for a long time, but due to a lack of trust on some issues, do not participate in some social aspects or events. I'll give you a concrete example. For example, one of our lowest one of the population groups that participates the lowest in, for example, local municipal elections is our Estonian community. And despite the Estonian community being very well established, being very well integrated into the society, there's something, an aspect of wanting to be involved in local affairs that affects their participation in as voters in municipal elections. So you get very low numbers, way under 20% participate in municipal elections. So building that sense of trust and sense of wanting to contribute to the society where they live in, despite coming from 80 kilometers just down the border, is a very big challenge. But this is an issue that also affects many other migrant groups. Building that sense of trust in my sense of contribution by voting, by becoming a candidate, by being politically active, so on and so forth. So trust is a very, very important issue. And this one extends to collaborating with NGOs or with
Yeah.
different networks and forums.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree. I think Amiirah also mentioned that in your welcome speech that, we should also consider, the intersectionality of the migrant experience, right? But I know that you're also a member of ENAR, which is also like a European level network. So do you have any comments on that? How difficult it is, like in practical terms, to actually build solidarity?
I'd just like to sort of be clear that I'm not speaking here as a representative of ENAR, so I can't speak in their name. But the way I see it, for sure, like it's something that is very difficult to do in practice when we speak about, like building solidarities and building coalitions and this sort of like alliance building. Just because I think the system is sort of set up to like have this divide and conquer sort of mentality, like going back to the whole colonial rule of divide and conquer. So the system is set up such that, where a lot of organizations, migrant organizations, or, like minority organizations, we are fighting for very limited resources. There are limited resources that are sort of, allocated for this sort of work, and that makes it really difficult, when people are all sort of fighting for, like their livelihoods, for their jobs, for, like, yeah, it's difficult to sort of foster that solidarity in that sense, on a very practical level, like, because you need to get money to do certain projects and stuff like that. But I think, like, as I mentioned, we need to also have this better understanding of how all these inequalities and all these issues that we're fighting for, they're all interconnected, like at the systemic level, we're all fighting against the same thing. And I think, like, we need to sort of really emphasize that and highlight that, and really, be mindful of that when we try to do our work as organizers. That, like, we're all fighting against the same thing, and we, like, there's power in numbers. We really need to sort of come together, and I guess, like, work on the core values that we each hold, and identify those common values that we hold, and push the work forward.
We do now have some questions in the chat room.
Yes.
I think, Peter, there are some questions specifically addressed to you. So would you like to answer those questions?
What I was reading was a suggestion from Tom Huddleston about applying for the European Commission Advisory Group. Thanks, Tom, I hadn't heard about this, but I'll look into it. I'll look into it once I have the opportunity. Thanks for that. But going to the questions, let me see. The first question was from Tom as well. And he asks, what are the specific powers that Ethno has developed that have helped it to be taken seriously by external partners and allies? Actually, that's a very good question. But I think the aspect of being taken seriously is that because it's established by government decree, and it's allocated a certain amount of resources, not very big resources, and it's also been given the staff as in me and a colleague who does a part of the secretariat work as well, and then all of the regional coordinators who coordinate the regional advisory boards. It makes it actually an established forum that is easily available, easy to identify, and because it brings different actors together, quite many actors, from political parties to regional government to ministries to trade unions and to Federation of Municipalities. There's very strong societal actors who are part of Ethno, and thus it also feeds into the credibility of Ethno. When it comes to the powers itself, it's an advisory board. It's not a decision-making board. So we make that very clear that we don't make decisions, but we give our input to decision-making. And then going to the second question from Ala, I think, was what's the process of creating that connection with government and individuals to form a physical open space? What I meant by that was, in order for people to come together, you have to arrange physical spaces where people can meet or where people can work on something together. So in addition to just formal meetings where the national or the advisory board meets, we try and organize workshops or sessions where people can come and contribute to different issues and different aspects. So we can have forums, seminars, whatever they may be. And actually, I think in beginning of last year, we arranged, I think the Anti-Racism Forum was somehow involved in our Afrophobia seminar, where we were dealing with the issues of racism and discrimination faced by people of African descent based on the EU MIDIS 2 results that had been released in at the end of 2018. So by creating those kinds of forums and spaces, both closed and open, we try and create physical spaces where people can connect with people in government or people in public office. And then the Estonian question, yeah, that could be just that simple. It could be that people don't feel the need to be so involved in Finnish society and Finnish politics because they feel more attached to Estonia, which is right across Gulf. But the counter argument that I give to that is that your children are going to school here, you're using the same medical facilities or social and health facility or services that are here. You're reliant on the same decision-making processes that are being done in this country. So it is to your interest and it is to your benefit to be part and parcel and participate in the decision-making processes here. And thinking how easy or easier it has been made for people with a migrant background to participate, especially in municipality politics, it is actually it would make more sense to be more involved. But it's not as simple.
I think there's Teresa would like to ask a question or comment.
Hello, everyone. It's Teresa here. I'm from Poland. I live in Ireland, but I'm in Poland right now, actually. So my question was more or less open question and an open comment, because especially what Amiirah said around competition for resources, limited resources, and how do you have any practical advices? How do you have those difficult conversations with different groups? Because we actually had a conversation of this nature recently with a group of migrant leaders that I work with in Ireland, and we actually had to get a facilitator to help us unpack and go through these difficult conversations. And I was wondering, do you have any tips? Do you have any activities that you conduct to have those conversations, or do you have just, are you stuck the same as we are? Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa, for your question. It is an important question, just because I think like with any sort of movement, not just the racial justice movement, but any social movements, there is bound to be, differences of opinions within the movement and between organizations, sometimes even, within the same organizations. So I don't know if there are any practical tips that I can necessarily give, apart from, I think like it's about building the trust. So what Peter said before, about having that trust in, when being involved in something, or to motivate you to be involved in something. It's the same, when trying to work with other organizations, or like to build the sort of like inter-movement solidarity and alliance building. I think you just sort of like need to continuously show up for each other, like in terms of the different causes that you're fighting for. If it's an inter-movement sort of collaboration or cooperation, showing up for each other in the sense that, speak up when something is affecting that particular community, or, affecting like the issue that they're fighting for, without needing to be told, in a way. So just being aware of all that is going on, all the different issues that are out there, and as I said, it's all interconnected. So finding ways in that sense, and identifying the common values that you have as an organization, and trying to, build up that relationship over time. If you continuously show up for each other, like there's the trust building there, the process is there in terms of building that trust. And I think without that trust, like it's really difficult to work in any sort of coalition or any alliances. I think like the core of it would be fostering and building that trust, I would say.